includes Netflix and a Now Entertainment membership with Sky Channels. Hurry! This amazing offer on BT Broadband and TV ends April 13th. Join BT today. New customers 24-month contract. CPI plus 3.9% increase each March. $48.99 for month 25. Terms apply.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's...
Turn left onto Bath Road, A4.
Good morning, 3 minutes after 7 on Tuesday, April the 12th. The bright student who wanted to be a doctor turned into a radical.
Continue on Bath Road for 1 mile. Continue for 1.5 miles.
The man who went on to murder Sir David Amess. Full coverage of that story. In other news, full coverage of the problems across the full travel sector, airports and now ports, and the suggestion that the ferries might not actually start travelling, the ferries across to France, until Good Friday. We'll give you full details on that. People seeking to come the other way, brave Ukrainians fleeing from the country where, by the way, it has been reported Russia has now deployed chemical weaponry of some sorts. We're trying to find out whether that's true later with the Armed Forces Minister. But back to the idea of those Ukrainian refugees and the problems that you're getting. Annie Letner from Burgess Hill. We spoke with her last week.
After telling Nick last week about the difficulties with the Home Office visa scheme, finally some good news. I'm Annie Letner from Burgess Hill, and I'll be telling Nick the latest.
Well, that sounds positive, Annie. Look forward to hearing from you on that one. And while nothing comes near the gravity of his conviction for sexual assault, politically now problems for the Conservatives as Imran Ahmad Khan, who won the Wakefield seat as recently as 2019, part of the Great War, found guilty yesterday of a sexual assault on a 15-year-old boy. Here's Daily Mirror's political editor, Pippa Crerar.
The MP has been held to justice for his crimes, but the impact of this politically is that there potentially could be a by-elections looking increasingly likely, and it's a key seat.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Repeating again, of course, nothing comes near the gravity of what that, he's now a man, of course, what that, as a young man, as a 15-year-old, he had to endure as guilty of sexual assault. We look at the political aspect of that and the problems that it could pose to the Conservatives. Well, again, I have to tell you, and we'll get into this in some detail, it would appear that questions need to be asked of the so-called PREVENT programme, which is meant to, as it says on the tin, prevent young people from being radicalised. Ali Harbi Ali once dreamed of becoming a doctor. They say he was a bright kid, possibly bright enough to go to university, but he came radicalised, and the whole story played out at the Old Bailey yesterday. Here with the details, LBC's Charlotte Lynch. Charlotte.
Nick, jurors heard that Ali Harbi Ali was a bloodthirsty terrorist who'd been plotting an attack like this on an MP for years. Prosecutors said he became an Islamic State fanatic as he scoped out the home of Michael Gove, visiting there as many as 6 times. He also searched for Dominic Raab and Sir Keir Starmer before settling on Sir David.
In 300 yards, keep right to continue towards Tuns Lane, A355.
Where the MP was holding a constituency surgery in Leigh-on-Sea last October. He duped staff into getting an appointment where he stabbed Sir David more than 20 times in what was described to jurors as a vicious and frenzied attack. This is the moment that horrified witness Yvonne Eves called the police.
Keep right.
Now, the man is wielding a knife. He's threatened me. He's killed David Amos at Belfast Methodist Church. Can you see how big the knife is? Yes, it's a carving knife, a big kitchen carving knife. And we tried to get it off him. He won't be. He's threatened my son. He's threatened 4 people here. He wants to get shot apparently. He wants to be a hero and wants the police to come and shoot him.
Okay, we've got lots and lots of years to through, okay?
We're all dead.
She later said it was as if Ali was pleased with himself. The court heard that he told her and other members of the public he wanted every member of Parliament.
In 1/4 mile, at the roundabout, take the first exit onto the M4 slip road to London, Heathrow Airport.
Stopped by 2 officers who happened to be in the area at the time, armed only with batons. The jury were played this dramatic CCTV footage of his arrest.
Mate, drop the knife. Drop the knife now! On the floor now! Get it down! Right, searching. Right, mate, at the moment you're under arrest for murder, right?
And as he arrived at the police station in handcuffs, this admission of what he'd done.
Domestic or hate ladies in
Terror.
Pardon?
Terror.
Thank you.
Yeah.
On what basis? Racial, religious?
Religious.
In fact, Ali was so brazen, he even gave evidence during his trial at the Old Bailey, telling jurors he had no regrets about killing Sir David and that he deserved it. It has now been claimed he was dismissed as a risk by terror experts just months before he bought a knife which he planned to use to kill an MP. The Daily Mail's revealed he was discharged from the government's de-radicalisation scheme Prevent after being referred by a teacher in 2014 when he was just a teenager. It's suspected his own mother feared he'd joined Islamic State but was too scared to report him, and his father never took it seriously until he murdered an MP. Ali denied murder and preparing acts of terror, instead putting Sir David's family through the pain of a trial. He'll be sentenced for those offences at the Old Bailey tomorrow.
Charlotte Lynch reporting, and on this, we'll look in more detail at what would have to be said would seem failure of the Prevent programme with the former National Counter-Terrorism Coordinator, Nick Aldworth, in just a moment. But on the family aspect and on the man himself, and so many tributes were quite rightly paid.
In a quarter of a mile, merge onto M4.
Heart of stone, not to be moved by the photograph in today's Daily Mail. Him, the late Sir David, with his wife, and a number of his daughters a month before his daughter Alex's wedding. I mean, they are an absolute stunning looking family, clearly absolutely devoted and dedicated to each other. It is a heartbreaker. Now let's turn to someone who obviously knew him well on a very sad occasion. Stanley Johnson is a former Conservative MP, award-winning journalist and environmentalist. And I reference that, Stanley, because I think it was in the field of environment that you first got to know Sir David and got to know him particularly well. Good morning.
Well, good morning. Good morning. Yes, it was. It was in the field of environment, actually, more particularly in the field of animal welfare. We had a dinner in Manchester at the end of the Conservative Party conference in October last year.
Continue on M4 for 9 miles.
And he was addressing, he was hosting a meeting on animal welfare, in particular, two causes very dear to his heart: the ending the trophy hunting import, and of course the fight to try and work to save animals abroad, particularly animals like elephants in Thailand, who are so terribly abused, amongst other things, because the demand of the British tourism show for that kind of thing. So yes, he was a wonderful man, and what an absolute tragedy. And the clip you played, of course, today brought it all back, and will bring it back to your listeners in a most immediate way.
Stanley, how do we balance the need for constituents to be able to get to their MPs with the absolute need for MP safety? Because I doubt that you're going to go down the American route, which is effectively to lock them behind plexiglass all the time.
No, I wouldn't go down that route, but heavens, I absolutely think that you are right to stress the need for MPs to have a degree of protection. I would have thought, for example, I'm not an expert in security matters, I would have thought, for example, that you could presumably have some systems for investigating or screening people who come to MP surgeries. That might not be impossible to imagine. I would have thought that's something which really should be looked at rather carefully.
A word on his family, Stanley. Because the man pleaded not guilty, his wife, his family had to endure, and indeed I should say his staff, apologies, his staff as well, had to endure the trial. That to me is rather heartless, seeing as he confessed to it the moment he was arrested.
Well, and the law is the law. I think he had to be tried even though he confessed. And some people, I guess, confess to things they haven't done, but they have to be tried. Nick, I can't really comment on that. I'm not an expert. It was a horrifying event, an event which makes one really believe that the event program you're going to be talking about later should be looked at.
Yeah. Lastly, Stanley, there was a time that you were the father of 2 serving MPs. You're still the father of 1 serving MP who happens to be the Prime Minister. When did you hear about his trip to Kyiv, and how concerned were you?
Well, I just want to make a point here. I'm the father of a serving member of Parliament.
Indeed, in the House of Lords, of course. Joe.
No, I won't say I have no knowledge of the trip to Kyiv, but I will say I thought it was an absolutely wonderful example of leading from the front. And I think, really at this moment, you have to say Europe needs to pull its socks up. I mean, Germany is saying they can't cover
to set the path in a sense.
I think it has been incredibly important. I think the anti-ship missiles which are going out, the tanks which are going out, is vital. But what Europe is coming, it needs to come in behind us now in a big way, and I'm not yet convinced that they've got the message.
Always enjoy speaking with you. Stanley Johnson served as a Conservative MEP and award-winning journalist and environmentalist, commenting on the matters and his close friendship with Sir David. So let's look at what is, I'm afraid I have to say, that it seemed a failure of the PREVENT programme. It was in 2014. He's a teenager then. Ali was referred by a teacher to the programme, which of course is designed to stop people being drawn into violence. Let's bring, oh, and let me just also, I didn't name check those two. Did I name check any? They're worth it again. The two police officers, who, by the way, go in with nothing more than effectively like a nightstick or a truncheon, no stab vest. PCs Ryan Curtis and Scott James subsequently awarded the Merit Star, which is the highest accolade possible under Essex Police. So I think their names deserve to be mentioned. In a story of such ghastly depravity, Ryan Curtis and Scott James emerged with considerable credit. Nick Aldworth served as former National Counter-Terrorism Coordinator and a Metropolitan Police Detective Chief Superintendent. Nick, you didn't design the programme, but can I put it to you, it's failed again, and if so, why? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. So I want to be a contrarian. I don't think the programme does fail. I think, given the thousands of people that go through the programme every year, and the few that over time go on to commit offences, broadly speaking, I think we have to say that the PREVENT programme has enormous merits and works very, very well.
Can you give us numbers, Nick? I mean, obviously some of this is sensitive information, but are you able to say there are hundreds of attacks that we never know about because of PREVENT?
No, you can't say that, because what's happening is, thousands of people get referred to the PREVENT programme every year. I'm sorry, Nick, I wasn't expecting to talk about PREVENT this morning,
okay.
But I'm very happy to do so.
Sure.
It is in the numbers of thousands, and every year referred in, and the numbers that go on to commit terrorist offences thereafter are absolutely minuscule, less than 1%. So to say it's a failure, I think, is incorrect. What I think is absolutely correct to say is that it's not a programme that is foolproof. It can be tricked, it can be deceived, because fundamentally it's reliant on individuals to voluntarily engage with it, and it doesn't involve at this sort of level. It doesn't involve, psychiatric assessment or the ability to test for somebody's telling the truth or not. And we can't even do that inside prisons.
I don't need to remind you, as we heard in my conversation with Stanley Johnson, this is in relatively short order the second MP who's been fatally attacked. How, unless you say we put them behind bulletproof glass, how would you make them safer, Nick Aldworth?
So it starts with them being aware of their own vulnerabilities, and there is, in my time at Parliament, we created a thing called the Parliamentary Liaison and Investigation Team, which was brought together to try and coordinate and create a more consistent approach to members' security, because up to that point it was largely down to how well the local police force invested time and interest in what was going on. So that's one way, and they get a lot of free advice and learning from the parliamentary authorities around risk management. There's also a programme whereby they can apply for funding for additional security measures. That doesn't extend to guards in surgeries. And I think what's interesting, Nick, is in some of our public areas, such as job centres and hospitals and such like, our public servants and the public are protected by security guards. I certainly wouldn't have any objection to there being better security measures at MP surgeries. It comes at a cost, but it's a cost worth paying to protect our democracy.
Lastly, I don't know whether I would imagine you probably have seen the video of those two men in Essex, and sometimes the police, I choose this word deliberately, cop it fairly, sometimes possibly unfairly. Those two blokes who go racing with nothing more than, I think, a nightstick and no stab. A word on that, Nickel.
Look, every day up and down the country, cops do incredible things that don't often get seen, and the fact that this has been seen so publicly it is fabulous. And I think we should all be proud that we are protected by people like those two officers, exceptionally brave. They are representative of the body of people that we call the British Police.
Nick Aldworth is former National Counter-Terrorism Coordinator and serves as a Detective Chief Superintendent with the Metropolitan Police in London. The 7:15 LBC News headlines follow now with Simon Cornwell.
The UK is working to verify reports that Russian forces have used chemical agents in an attack in Ukraine. The Conservatives have been urged to remove the whip from senior MP Crispin Blunt after he questioned a jury's conviction of fellow MP Imran Ahmed Khan. Figures show the number of job vacancies in the UK rose to a new record of more than 1.2 million in the first quarter. LBC weather, cloudy with showers or longer spells of rain for many, a high of 18 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Joanne Webb. So the M1 all back open now, northbound at junction 14 at Milton Keynes. Still quite busy, but those delays are now beginning to ease. But not so good news on the M25 anti-clockwise. Between junctions 13 at Staines and 12 at the M3, 3 of the 5 lanes are closed.
In 2 miles at junction 3, take the A312 exit to Harrow, Hayes.
Closed eastbound between junctions 8 at Leeds Castle, 11 at Hythe, whilst those lorries are held on the motorway. In Walworth, Albany Road is closed westbound, and that's because of an ongoing police investigation. On the underground, there are severe delays on the Metropolitan line, and Mansion House Station remains closed because of a shortage of staff.
This is LBC. A battle has been waging on since the invention of the wheel. The battle for the front seat.
Fancy front seat!
It's that innate human desire to own the view, the space, the power. The all-new Honda H.
In a quarter of a mile at junction 3, take the A312 exit to Harrow, Hayes. Exit at junction 3. In a quarter of a mile at Cranford Parkway interchange, take the 4th exit onto the Parkway, A312. Exit the roundabout onto the parkway. Continue on the parkway for 1 mile. In a quarter of a mile, at Wagoners Roundabout, take the second exit and stay on the parkway, A312. Exit the roundabout onto the parkway. Continue on A312 for 1.5 miles. 200 yards, turn right onto Roslyn Avenue. Turn right onto Roslyn Avenue, then you will arrive at your destination.